Alright guys, today I'm going to be talking to you about how to write a thematic essay. We're not going to write a ton of thematic essays this year. We'll do more document based, and you're going to be watching a Hip Hughes video, and he goes over how to write a DBQ, but I'm going to hit you with thematic. And one of the easiest ways to do this is to look at something that we've already been talking about. We've already been talking about geography and how geography affects people's lives. And so we're going to look at this thematic essay, break it down into different parts, and then show you how to get the maximum amount of points for that. So some of you guys just, you see an essay and you think, oh no, it's an essay. I can't do essays. I don't write. I'm not good at it. I don't like it. It just doesn't feel right. I'm not good at sentence structure. I don't know where to start, or I don't know what to put in and what to leave out. So I'm going to try to give you the basics. Now, some of you out there are great essay writers, and so maybe this video is not going to give you a lot. But even those of you that are pretty good, I want to show you how to get from writing a 3 to a 4. And those of you that are writing maybe getting 1 point for an essay or 2-point essays, we got to get you to those 3s. We got to get you to write 3-level essays. If you can write level 3 essays, you will pass your regents next year. So that's my goal. Okay, first of all, let's look at what the essay says. All right, so that's the first step we're going to take, is looking at the essay itself.
Dots or die. Dots or die. If you don't do the dots, you're dead, because I'm gonna kill you. I'm not gonna kill you, but you're gonna fail. And if you fail, you might not just graduate. And if you don't graduate, you'll be living in a van down by the side of the river, and nobody wants that.
All right, so here is your basic setup for your essay. Thematic essay question. And the directions part, the first thing you got to do is read the directions. It said write a well-organized essay that includes an introduction, several paragraphs, there's keyword there, several, addressing the task below, and a conclusion. So you have to have an intro, you have to have several body paragraphs that address the task, and then wrap it up with a conclusion. All right, so let's look at what the setup of this essay is. I picked a very simple one for our first try. It's on geography, something that we've just been covering. Theme is geography, and we're going to be looking at all sorts of different themes. We're looking at 13 different themes this year, and that's how we set up your binder. And one of the first theme in there was geography. So let's look at what the theme says. Geography features can positively or negatively affect the development of a nation or region. So this is a good way to start off the essay, a topic sentence. But you can't just use that alone and say that's my introduction. You have to add more stuff to it. So, and you don't want to get into the details though. See, a lot of people put a bunch of details into the intro, and then that's not an introduction anymore. So you can say that geographic features can positively or negatively affect the development of a nation or region. But you have to say a little bit more without getting into too much detail, and I'll go into that in a little bit. The task. Select one geographic feature. Now, this you can't get any more simple than this. Usually they're going to ask you to pick 2. It says select one geographic feature from your study of global history. So any geographic feature that we've talked about. Then explain how this geographic feature has had effect on the historical development of 2 nations or regions. So one geographic feature, but then you have to pick 2 nations that it affects. Now, does it say they have to be 2 positive? No. Does it say they have to be 2 negative? No. It could be a positive and a negative, or it could be 2 of each. Sorry, 2 positive or 2 negative. And it only says you have to do 2 different nations or regions. So you could have 1 positive effect, 1 negative effect. But you have to pick 2 different regions. So if you're going to pick islands, you have to pick 2 different nations or regions that have islands. So you have to pick like Great Britain and Japan, or Greece and Japan, something like that. Or if you're going to pick deserts, you may have to pick the Gobi Desert and the Taklamakan Desert, or something like that, or the Sahara Desert. Sahara Desert's always one that you should throw on there if you're going to use a desert. Sahara Desert's easy to write about, and it's easy to remember. We always remember the Sahara Desert, largest one in the world. So pick 2 nations that a geographic feature has had an effect on. All right, 1 geographic feature and 2 nations. Now, it also gives you suggestions down below. It always gives you suggestions. Don't pick something that's not on there. All right, it says river, valley, mountain, desert, island, rainforest, climate. Don't pick ocean. Don't pick tundra. I mean, they're listing these things for a reason, These are probably the easiest things that you can write about. So you pick one of these geographic features, not two, not three. You don't get extra points because you're picking multiple ones of these. Nope. Just pick one. And then, but you got to think of a region, a couple different regions of the world. So if you're going to pick deserts, you got to know 2 different places that have deserts. If you pick rainforest, you better know 2 different rainforests or places at least that they had rainforests. Same thing with mountains. So don't pick one unless you know 2 different places that you can talk about with that same geographic feature. All right? I'm not going to get into a big detail about this yet, but just know you got to read the theme, do the task, pick one of those things.
All right, so let's write this now. We got to start with having an introduction.
Allow myself to introduce myself.
And our introduction has to be more than just a restating of the theme, but you should use the theme in there as well. So the theme was that geographic features can positively or negatively affect a nation or a region, or have positive or negative effects on the development of the region. So we got to put that in there. But you also have to have other things too. So you might start out by saying geographic features can positively or negatively affect the development of a region. One such geographic feature is mountains. Mountains isolate people. So sometimes you might say throughout history, geographic features such as mountains have limited people's interaction with the outside world, and in doing such can limit the region in which they live. For example, the mountains of ancient Greece and China. That's pretty good. It's not great, but you don't want to add too much stuff. You want to take away what you're going to put in the body. So something like that, 2 or 3 sentences to set it up, explain what you're going to be talking about. You might, you throw in the task a little bit. You say that you're going to be talking about 2 different regions. So I said Greece and China I'm going to use. I talked about how it's going to limit their contact, and then how it's going to shape their development. Okay, then you get into the body. Now, since there's only one geographic feature, but there's 2 civilizations, I'm going to have 2 body paragraphs. One body paragraph is going to deal with China, and one body paragraph is going to deal with Greece. If it was 2 geographic features and 2 civilizations, I'd have to do a civilization with geographic 1, the same civilization with geographic 2, and so there'd be 4 paragraphs plus the introduction and the conclusion. This is a very simple one, very simple to start with. 1 geographic feature, 2 locations. So China, Greece. So then I would get into the body.
Now if we're talking body, you got a perfect one, so put it on me.
And the body is going to say, go rate with that task. The task is to show how it affected it. It doesn't say positive, doesn't say negative. It could be either. So you could talk about how maybe the mountains were positive in that it kept out foreign invaders from China. Maybe you want to use India and say the same thing, all right? But it also isolated China, and it made China develop that ethnocentrism. There you go, key word, vocab word. You throw ethnocentrism in there and explain what ethnocentrism is, where you think your ethnic group is greater or better than all the other ones, and you kind of have a mistrust or a distrust of other groups, and that's how you develop. Man, that's going to give you so many points. That's going to be like, the teacher's going to be there and go, wow, they learned stuff. All right, oh my God, it's just going to jump right off the page and be like, yeah, all right, that's not a 2 anymore, that's a 3. All right, so that's what we got to get. We got to get these 3 or 4 point essays instead of 1 or 2s. You can make those into 3 or 4 essays just by putting those vocab words in. Number 1, the bare bones, the bare basics. If you hit every single task and introduce the theme and get a conclusion, you should get a 3. You should get a 3 just for doing all the parts of the essay. But you want to make that 3 into a 4, bam, throw in those vocabulary words. So you throw in the ethnocentrism, you talk about how China developed differently from other places around them because they were isolated, and as a result, their philosophy of life, you look at Confucius, which we're going to get into that kind of stuff, all that stuff comes from that isolation. Boom, end of paragraph 1 or 2. Second body paragraph, 3rd paragraph overall. Now I'm going to talk about a different one. Same thing, mountains, but I'm going to talk about in a different location, Greece. Okay, so in Greece you have all these mountains. Makes it very difficult to farm. The land is not arable. Key word, boom. Another word, another vocab word, arable, meaning not farmable. Throw that in there. Holy cow, explain what that means. We're moving to level 4. We are getting out of that level 2. Level 3, do all the tasks. Level 4, vocab words, explanation, going into depth. Talk about how those mountains cause them to be isolated just like China was isolated. But it wasn't just isolated. China was isolated from the outside world. Greece was isolated from itself. I mean, you have all these, what are they called? City-states developing. Athens and Sparta. Boom! More big keywords and terms. Athens develops one way, Sparta develops another way. If you want to get into some detail about how Athens became democratic and had its government in one way, and then talk about how Sparta became militaristic and totalitarian, get into that. Just as a brief explanation of how mountains separated these two cultures and caused them to develop in many different ways. Non-arable land, making it very difficult to farm. They had to go out and find their food other places. Isolated them, cut them off, showed how they developed in different ways. Sparta and Athens developed different from each other. That's great. All right, so now you've done China, you've done Greece, you've done your 2 different places, you've done your 1 geographic feature, and you've shown how it's been positive, isolating, maybe keeping foreign invaders out. We've also showed negative, not arable land, ethnocentrism, not getting any new ideas or cultures interacting with, no cultural diffusion. It's also going to lead to wars between Athens and Sparta because they distrust each other. So positive, negative, and then you just wrap it up with a conclusion.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
Right, we're going to have a conclusion now. How do you conclude it? Well, you just basically restate the theme, restate what you said. All right, so in conclusion, countries' geographic features play a crucial role in its development. The examples of China and Greece show how good or bad. And then maybe use like a little, something kind of like to just send it off and be like, even today, geographic features still play a major role in the development of societies. Natural resources such as, coal and oil and things like that can have great effects on how a culture develops. Maybe just kind of throw something in there to just kind of like give it a little extension on. All right, and talk about, maybe even just, pollution or climate or things like that. Just kind of throw a sentence or 2 in there at the end, just to kind of tie it all up, bring it more modern, and show how it's still happening today. And that's just a nice little way to wrap it up, and you're not just boom, the end, ending it. You're kind of putting a nice little bow on it, wrapping it up. You like your present. You don't want to just someone give you a present. You want it all wrapped up. Nice little shiny, maybe a little bow on there, some little stickers. You like that. And those little stickers and things, those stick in the mind. Stickers stick in the mind, and they're going to make me feel like, okay, that was a 3, a solid, good 3, borderline 4. But bam, you hit me with that great conclusion. You wrapped it all up. You summarized. And I'm like, nope, that's 4. That is, and I'm grading these. Me. You got to please me. So I'm making this video to show you how to please me. So in summary, let me summarize. Do the dots, those tasks. This one only had 1 dot, but most of the time they're going to have 2 or 3 dots, and you got to make sure you do all those. That's just a basic thing right off the bat. You got to do the dots. Then make sure you have a good intro, more than 1 sentence. Don't just copy the task, 2 or 3 sentences. Good body, good sentence structure, logical organization. So go with the first idea, talk about that idea, go to the next idea, talk about that idea, and then conclude. Do the dots, intro, body, conclusion. Make those 2 essays into 3s, make those 3 essays into 4. It's not brain surgery, it's not rocket science. Anybody can do it. You can be a better writer. Follow my tips, follow my advice.